There's this strength in stillness that most people will never recognize because it does not raise its voice. It does not chase recognition, nor does it strive to be noticed. Yet, it is deeply felt by all. We live in a culture that praises noise, instant answers, loud confidence, and constant motion. But true wisdom, especially in women, rarely comes with noise. It is quiet, not out of fear, but out of balance, grounding, and wholeness. True stillness does not mean emptiness. It means a calm strength that cannot be shaken, even when the world is moving fast. An intelligent woman is not always the one with the highest title or the sharpest opinion in the room. She's the one who can step away from chaos without the need to prove herself. She is the one who doesn't mistake attention for respect. She is the one who simply knows. And her knowing doesn't have to be explained because it shows in the way she carries herself, in the way she chooses peace over pride, and in how she refuses to be dragged into battles that do not matter. And she knows this. The way she treats herself sets the rhythm for every relationship in her life. When she speaks kindly to herself, she attracts kindness. When she respects her own time, others learn to respect it too. When she chooses peace, her relationships slowly learn to move in that same rhythm. This is not a message about how to impress others. It is not about perfection. It is about awareness. Because the moment a woman becomes aware of her habits, how she moves, reacts, and thinks, she unlocks a quiet authority that shifts the atmosphere wherever she goes. She doesn't need to control others. Her presence does the work. So let us walk together into this awareness. If this is your first time here, welcome to Master Within Now, a place where timeless wisdom is shared to protect your energy, raise your mindset, and align you with purpose. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a message that strengthens your soul, empowers your spirit, and perhaps changes your path forever. Let us begin. There is a difference between silence and stillness. Many remain quiet outwardly, yet inside their minds roar like a busy market, trading for approval, bargaining against judgment, chasing applause. But a truly intelligent woman discovers something rare. Inner silence is not about removing sound. It is about dissolving inner conflict. Inner stillness means she no longer feels the constant pull to explain, argue, or fight to be seen. She doesn't isolate herself to protect her peace. She simply chooses not to give everything access to her attention. Her no is not harsh. It is simply firm. Her yes is not rushed. It is intentional. Her mind becomes a sacred temple, closed to unnecessary chatter, shielded from emotional storms. And this discipline is not born of arrogance, but of clarity. Clarity that came from experience, perhaps even painful lessons of what happens when she sacrifices her inner calm to manage outer chaos. Through life, she has learned endless arguments to prove her worth, constant explanations of her boundaries, emotional reactions to everyone's moods. None of these bring peace. They only leave her drained. Instead, she has learned that energy saved is wisdom gained. In neuroscience, there is a concept called cognitive load. It is the amount of information your brain holds at any moment. Too much stimulation, whether arguments, emotional tension, or even obsessive thinking, triggers stress hormones like cortisol. Over time, this weakens the part of the brain that governs self-control, decision-making, and empathy. But when a woman learns to protect her inner silence, she safeguards her mind. She allows her body to reset, her emotions to stabilize, and this simple act lays the foundation for true emotional intelligence. Not in theory, but in practice, in the way she shows up in every relationship. When her silence is guarded, her energy is not scattered everywhere. She no longer feels like she's constantly pulled in 10 directions, and that stability shows up in the way she carries herself each day. Picture a woman who is always reacting. Her partner says something careless and she immediately snaps back. Her boss overlooks her efforts and she simmers with resentment. A friend forgets to call and she takes it as rejection. Her life becomes a storm of emotional highs and lows. Her nervous system never feels at rest. Even when things are calm outside, her inner world feels like a battlefield. She spends more time recovering from her own reactions than living fully in the moment. Now imagine another woman. Her partner raises his voice, and instead of reacting, she pauses. And in that pause, she hears not just the words, but the pain beneath them. She does not mirror his chaos. She remains in her own calm. And from that calm, she chooses a response that carries wisdom instead of reaction. Her calm is not about ignoring the situation. It is about refusing to give away her power. She proves that control is not about controlling others, but mastering her own state. This is the gift of inner silence. It is not weakness, it is mastery, and it changes the way people treat you. People quickly learn that shouting, provoking, or testing her will not shake her balance. They begin to respect her, not because she demands it, but because her presence quietly commands it. In Eastern wisdom, there is a saying, the wise one drinks water, but hears the ripple. Meaning, she does not just live, she listens. She feels energy. She notices when a smile hides sorrow. She senses what remains unsaid. Because her mind is uncluttered, she sees truth with clarity. This level of perception is not magic. It is the natural result of being still enough to notice details most people rush past. Such a woman becomes a mystery to others. Why? Because she cannot be predicted. She doesn't join every conflict. She doesn't play in every drama. She doesn't argue in every battle. And in a world addicted to reaction, her restraint becomes magnetic. People feel her presence, steady, grounded, quietly knowing. They wonder how she stays so calm, and in their wondering, they are drawn to her even more. But silence is not only spiritual, it is deeply practical. In relationships, it can be the line between endless conflict and lasting connection. Silence gives space for emotions to cool, for understanding to rise, and for healing to take place. There is a story of an older woman known for healing quarrels among couples. People came to her for advice, yet she often sat quietly, eyes closed, listening. When asked why she delayed speaking, she replied, "I wait for the truth to rise, not the anger, not the fear, the truth." She understood that wisdom often needs space to reveal itself, and rushing only leads to more confusion. This is the kind of woman who does not speak from her wounds. She waits until wisdom returns. Then she offers her words. Her silence is not avoidance, it is preparation for truth. Science supports this. When you pause for even 90 seconds after emotional trigger, the amygdala, the brain's emotional center, calms down, allowing reason to return. That means if you simply wait before reacting, your chance of speaking with wisdom instead of regret increases dramatically. Even a short pause can change the entire outcome of a conversation. Highly intelligent women understand this, so they practice silence, not just on meditation mats, but in the heat of conflict. When insulted, they do not rush to defend. When misunderstood, they do not scramble to explain. When ignored, they do not shrink. They remain still within. And from that stillness, the next step is always clear. But stillness does not mean absence of emotion. On the contrary, it means she feels everything, but she is ruled by nothing. She does not numb herself or pretend she does not care. She allows herself to feel anger, sadness, joy, and love fully, but she does not let any single emotion take control of her choices. This ability to feel deeply while staying steady is what makes her powerful. This leads us to the second habit, knowing when to be soft and when to be still. Softness is often mistaken for fragility, and strength is often confused with harshness. But a truly intelligent woman has matured beyond those illusions. She has been too soft and been taken for granted. She has been too hard and pushed love away. And through self-awareness, she learns to carry both softness and strength together in balance. She realizes that life is not about always being one or the other, but about having the wisdom to know which one the moment calls for. Her daily practice is emotional discipline. Not for others, but because she honors her own energy. She knows anger may feel powerful in the moment, but it drains her. She knows forgiving too quickly, bending too easily, staying quiet to avoid conflict. These cost her dignity in the long run. And she has lived through those lessons long enough to know they are true. So instead of reacting blindly, she practices patience. She reminds herself that her emotions are signals, not commands. So she learns a new rhythm. When a man disrespects her boundary, she does not shout, she simply removes his access to her presence. When a friend only comes around in need, she does not lecture, she simply stops being endlessly available. When life overwhelms her, she does not collapse, she slows down, listens, and adjusts her pace. This is steel, calm, unmovable, firm. But within this steel remains softness, the softness to forgive without being naive, the softness to cry without losing stability, the softness to love deeply without losing herself. She does not see softness as weakness, but as proof of her humanity. She does not see steel as coldness, but as proof of her self-respect. Psychologists call this emotional flexibility, the ability to shift states without getting stuck. It is not numbness, but choice. And this creates safety in relationships. Because when others see that she can move through her emotions without being consumed, they trust her. They know she will not explode without reason, nor hide what she feels until it bursts. Men, for example, feel more at ease with a woman who feels deeply but is not drowned by emotion. A woman who expresses needs with clarity, not blame. A woman who can remain graceful even when things don't go her way. That grace does not come from pretending she isn't hurt. It comes from choosing how to respond after she feels the hurt. This is not performance, it is maturity, and it is the birthplace of true intimacy. Real intimacy is built when someone knows they can see all of her, the strong and the soft, and she will not lose herself in either. There is a story of a woman whose husband grew distant. For months she tried, conversations, tears, even silence. Nothing worked. One evening she spoke calmly. I love you, but I will not carry this relationship alone. I am here if you want to rebuild, but I will not beg for your presence. For the first time, he truly heard her. Not because she was louder, but because she was clearer. Her words were not threats, but boundaries, and he could feel the steel beneath her softness. That combination, the calm strength with the willingness to love, cut through his defenses. This is the kind of woman people respect. Even if they disagree, they know her words are true. Her presence is steady. Her love is not desperate. Her emotions do not spill uncontrolled. She radiates peace, and people either rise to meet her or fall away. Neurology confirms this. Emotional regulation strengthens the brain's resilience. A woman who masters her emotions creates safety in her relationships, and safe relationships, in turn, make her brain more adaptive, more flexible, and better able to handle change. It is a cycle of self-mastery, one that builds on itself the more she practices it. The more she regulates, the stronger her mind becomes. The stronger her mind becomes, the easier it is to regulate. And it begins with one simple but powerful practice: pausing, taking a breath, creating a moment of space before responding. In that pause, she asks herself, is this response aligned with the woman I am becoming? That single question slows down reactivity and allows wisdom to rise. She is no longer acting from impulse, but from intention. Even when she stumbles, as all humans do, she does not shame herself. She does not see mistakes as failures, but as teachers. She reflects, she adjusts, she grows. And each time she rises from a stumble with clarity, she strengthens her sense of control over her life. This is emotional intelligence in action. It is not about perfection, it is about practice. A woman who knows when to be soft and when to be still cannot be easily manipulated. She cannot be guilted into overgiving, nor provoked into reckless words. Instead, she moves with calm purpose. And this balance of silence and discernment, of softness and still, becomes the foundation of her leadership, her love, and her legacy. It is the quiet force behind the way she guides, the way she nurtures, and the way she holds herself with dignity. There is another invisible skill that highly intelligent women carry, one that is often overlooked in a world obsessed with how loudly someone can speak. That skill is observation. She has trained herself to notice, to listen beyond words, to remain grounded in awareness even when the world urges her to react quickly or speak without thinking. Observation is her shield against distraction and her bridge to deeper understanding. And this habit is not born from fear, but from discipline. It is a quiet form of strength, the choice to understand before demanding to be understood. She knows that true clarity comes not from speaking first, but from seeing clearly. A woman of intelligence observes more than she speaks, not because she has nothing to say, but because she knows that most people only listen to reply, not to truly hear. She refuses to waste her energy on shallow exchanges or surface-level connections. Instead, she saves her words for moments when they matter, when they can bring light into a room rather than just add more noise. There is a story of a woman entering a new workplace. While others rushed to prove themselves, to show their worth, to mark their presence, she remained still. She listened, she watched, she noticed how people spoke in front of the manager compared to when he wasn't around. She observed who claimed credit, who carried responsibility, and who hid in silence during conflict. By the end of a month, she did not just know names and roles, she understood personalities, motives, patterns, and trust. She could see the invisible web of dynamics that shaped the workplace. This habit of quiet watching gave her wisdom that no anxious performance could ever bring. And when she finally spoke, her words carried weight, not because she was louder, but because her insight was rooted in presence, and presence in this world is rare. When a woman sees people with clarity, not through judgment, but through awareness, she earns respect that cannot be demanded. People recognize that she is not guessing, she is perceiving. Even science echoes this truth. Observation activates the mirror neuron system in the brain, the network that allows us to sense and empathize with others' emotions. By noticing tone, body language, and subtle energy shifts, she sharpens her intuition. What some call a woman's sixth sense is simply the result of focus combined with emotional literacy. Many women, looking back, recall moments when the red flags were there, but they ignored them. The apology that never met the eyes. The friend whose compliments carried quiet envy. The colleague who was warm in public, but dismissive in private. The signs were present, but buried beneath distraction, busyness, and the desire to see only the best. Sometimes it was easier to hope than to see clearly. Easier to believe in words than to trust the unease that stirred quietly within. And so they kept going, even when the truth was whispering right in front of them. The intelligent woman does not rush to accuse, nor does she rush to defend her perspective. She pauses, she reflects. She observes people in their different seasons, when they are angry, when they're happy, when they feel powerful, when they feel threatened. She knows that character reveals itself not in moments of calm, but in moments of pressure. She listens not only with her ears, but with her whole being. Her eyes, her intuition, her sense of energy. Because she understands, people reveal their truth not only in what they say, but in how they say it, and in what they choose not to say. In relationships, this becomes both protection and intimacy. Protection because she can guard her heart from empty promises and false fronts. Intimacy because her awareness helps her connect more deeply to the people who truly matter. She's not fooled by charm because she watches beyond the surface. She notices the spaces between words and action. She pays attention to how a man treats waiters, how he speaks of his past, how he handles correction, how he responds when he loses. From these details, she discerns character, not by what he says about himself, but by what his behavior says for him. But she also uses her gift to nurture love. She notices when her partner is quiet, not because he's distant, but because he's burdened. She feels when his energy shifts even before he names it. This awareness allows her to meet him in ways that bring safety, because she's not guessing, she's paying attention. Love, for her, is not blind. It is observant, patient, and alive to the subtle signals that others often overlook. A wise woman once said, "I don't ask many questions, I simply watch as the answers reveal themselves." This calm awareness makes her presence magnetic. She listens so deeply that people feel seen. She notices small things, how someone's voice changes when they speak of their dream, how their shoulders soften when they feel safe, how their eyes brighten when they remember joy. And because she sees them, they open themselves in her presence. With her, they feel understood without needing to explain every detail. But her observation does not end with others. She turns it inward as well. She watches her own tone when she is tired. She notices her own patterns when insecurity visits. She becomes a student of her inner world. And in this self-watching lies transformation. There's a difference between motion and movement. Motion is habit, scrolling endlessly, reacting to notifications, rushing from task to task without awareness. Movement is guided by clarity, by choice. A woman who is always scrolling and rushing is in motion, caught in a cycle that never ends. But a woman who pauses to write, to build, to create, she is in movement. She is alive, not simply existing. She chooses direction instead of being swept away. This shift from consumption to creation reshapes everything. A woman who only consumes advice and opinions loses her own voice, drowning in noise that isn't hers. She begins to depend on others for her worth, her next step, her identity. But a woman who creates, she reclaims her inner authority. She knows she has something to give. Her journal becomes her mentor, reflecting her back to herself. Her routines become her temple, sacred practices that keep her grounded. Her silence becomes her guide, teaching her what cannot be spoken but can be felt. And in love, this habit frees her from dependence. She does not need her partner to supply her identity or constantly reassure her value. She brings a whole life to the table. She creates joy instead of waiting for it. She initiates care instead of demanding it. And her love becomes abundant, not needy. A giving that flows because her cup is already full. There is a story of a woman after a painful breakup. She consumed everything: books, courses, therapy. They helped, but something was missing. One day, she picked up an old paintbrush. She had not painted in years. And as she painted, something shifted. The grief did not vanish, but it transformed. Her art gave her a voice, a mirror, a place to return to herself. She later said, "It wasn't the painting that healed me. It was the reminder that I still had something to give beyond my pain." That is the quiet power of creation. This is the wisdom of creation. It is not about masterpieces. It is about presence, about giving yourself a place where your energy flows into something outside yourself. Science supports this too. Creative activity engages the brain's default mode network, the part that supports reflection, emotional healing, and problem solving. When she creates, she is not escaping reality, she is integrating it, weaving her pain, her hopes, her memories into something whole. And creation reshapes her relationship with time. She no longer feels life is happening to her. She becomes a participant, not just a responder. She chooses how her day begins, how it ends, how she rests, how she returns to herself. She does not just consume food, she creates nourishment. She does not just consume media, she creates boundaries. She does not just consume relationships, she contributes. And people feel the depth of that energy. She does not chase attention, she does not compete, she simply is. And that is power. But creation requires discipline. It is easier to scroll than to write, easier to react than to build, easier to binge than to reflect. So the intelligent woman does not wait for inspiration. She creates routine. She gives herself sacred spaces where creation becomes her rhythm. 10 minutes in the morning, a walk in silence, a weekly day unplugged. She commits. And in this, she finds herself again and again, not in the noise, but in the quiet decision to shape what she brings into the world. Observation shows her what is. Creation reminds her what can be. Together they form a life of purpose, not performance. There is a quiet dignity in a woman who no longer explains her boundaries. She does not shout them into existence. She does not beg for them to be seen. She does not break herself to keep others comfortable. Instead, she carries them like breath, natural, steady, and ever-present. Her boundary is not a wall, it is a rhythm. Those who can move with that rhythm stay, those who cannot drift away. And she is no longer afraid of their drifting because she has learned that peace is worth more than forced connection. For her, boundaries are not about exclusion, they are about alignment. She has learned, often through hard lessons, that giving too much to those who give too little leads only to emptiness and disconnection. And she knows now that no amount of sacrifice can fill a space where respect is absent. So her boundaries become sacred, not enforced with rage, but with consistency. She does not need to argue, to explain, or to justify. She simply lives them, and in her living, others learn how to treat her. When someone undervalues her time, she does not argue, she becomes less available. When someone crosses her line with disrespect, she does not plead, she withdraws with grace and finality. And in that retreat, her message is unshakable. I choose myself. The world often misunderstands such women. They are called cold, distant, proud. What people fail to see is the wisdom behind their silence. They have cried behind closed doors. They have bent until they broke. They have explained their pain to deaf ears, waiting for someone to finally listen. And in those fires, they were refined, not into stone, but into clarity. They no longer waste energy convincing others of the worth. They simply embody it. And clarity never needs to shout. In psychology, there's a word for losing yourself in another: enmeshment. It happens when your identity tangles so tightly with someone else's that you no longer know where you end and they begin. Your needs, your voice, your center, all blurred in the name of love. Many intelligent women have lived through this. They loved so deeply that they disappeared inside the relationship. They poured endlessly, hoping that devotion would be returned with respect. But when it wasn't, they were left hollow, a shadow of who they once were. And yet, they did not stay broken. They did not allow bitterness to shape them. Instead, they became clearer, not louder, but wiser. From that clarity, they built a new life where boundaries were no longer a reaction, but a reflection of deep self-respect. Consider the woman who always said yes. Yes to helping, yes to staying late, yes to forgiving too soon, yes to silencing herself to keep the peace. She believed love was sacrifice. She believed being available made her valuable. But inside, she was unraveling. Each yes pulled a thread loose until her sense of self was frayed and fragile. She kept giving from a well that was already dry, never realizing that true love is not endless depletion, but balance. No one noticed because she hid her breaking. Until one day, she could no longer give what she did not have. She collapsed under the weight of her own exhaustion. Not just physical burnout, but emotional collapse. The ache of having abandoned herself for too long. She had been carrying everyone else's needs while bearing her own, and the weight became too heavy to ignore. It was in that stillness that followed her exhaustion, when she felt completely emptied, that a sacred truth revealed itself. No one would hand her the life she deserved. She had to claim it herself, and to claim it meant to build boundaries. Boundaries not made of anger, but of clarity. Not a prison to keep people out, but a safe space where her energy, her voice, and her heart could finally breathe. She began with the smallest steps, confidently, switching her phone off after 8 p.m. without justification, simply because she chose to. Declining invitations that didn't align with her spirit, even when guilt whispered she should go. Canceling plans when her body asked for rest. Learning that saying no was not selfish but sacred. Refusing to respond to disrespect, even when it was wrapped in flattering words that once would have trapped her. And slowly, the world around her shifted. Some people faded away, revealing they were only there for what she could give. Others drew closer, now treating her with the same respect she had started showing herself. A woman who stands by her boundaries without explanation is not being cruel. She is simply unavailable for connections that dishonor her. She understands that the right man will never ask her to shrink herself, overextend, or endlessly explain just to be understood. He will hear her silence as clearly as her words. He will honor her rhythm without complaint. He will treasure her peace because he treasures her. In relationships, these boundaries become filters. Those who rely on guilt, manipulation, or subtle pressure to bend others' limits find no entry. She refuses to engage in emotional tug-of-war. She releases instead, even when it hurts, because to her, no bond is worth the sacrifice of self-abandonment. Letting go is not weakness. It is the quiet strength of knowing her soul cannot afford bargains that cost her wholeness. There's a saying, your boundary is not a negotiation. If someone dislikes it, they're free to leave. A woman of depth embodies this. not as a shield, but as a way of life. She has no need to prove herself. Proudly, her presence is her statement. Her absence is her statement. Her peace is her statement. And when people realize that her peace is not up for trade, they either rise to meet her or drift away. But boundaries are not only about protecting from others, they are also about protecting from herself. She draws lines with her own tendencies to overthink, to criticize herself harshly, to reopen wounds already healing. She catches her mind wandering into old stories, stories of not being enough, not being loved, not being chosen. And gently, she reminds herself, not today, I no longer live there. Each reminder becomes a brick in the foundation of her healing. This act of self-boundary becomes leadership of the inner world. She no longer bows to every fleeting thought or emotion. She values her energy too much to waste it on regret or revenge. Her attention becomes sacred currency, and she spends it only on what is aligned with truth. One woman once admitted how she excused the bad behavior of others. He didn't mean it. She's just stressed. They're trying their best. But over time, she saw how continually justifying others' inconsistency erased her own integrity. She wasn't only allowing mistreatment, she was teaching people that mistreatment was acceptable. Every excuse she made for them was a betrayal of herself. So she changed. Now, when someone apologizes but doesn't grow, she steps away. When someone makes promises but never honors them, she adjusts her expectations, not bitterly, but clearly, because she has learned that love without respect is not love, and attention without reliability is not commitment. In romance, such a woman is both mysterious and grounding. Mysterious because she cannot be predicted or controlled, grounding because her energy brings stability. Her partner feels the strength of her standards. He knows her love is deep, but it is not free of responsibility. She does not chase, she does not beg, she does not betray her own core just to keep someone interested. She knows that the right relationship is never built on desperation. It is built on mutual respect, on steady care, on truth. Her love flows, but it does not drown her. It uplifts both people without either one losing themselves. This is not dominance, it is self-possession. She knows herself, she knows her values, and she knows that anyone who tries to disguise control as love is not offering love at all. Her clarity makes her unshakable. Even when others try to blur lines, she holds firm, because she has learned that bending too far always breaks something inside. She refuses to break for anyone. Eastern philosophy teaches that a woman at peace with herself becomes like water, soft, yet powerful enough to shape mountains. She does not fight life, she flows with it. And part of that flow is knowing when to say no, when to step back, when to guard the space where she flourishes. Flowing with life does not mean she says yes to everything. It means she chooses with wisdom, allowing what is good for her to stay and letting what harms her pass away. That protection doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's turning off the news when it disturbs her peace. Sometimes it's choosing not to step into family conflicts that aren't hers to solve. Sometimes it's refusing to react when someone deliberately provokes. Sometimes it's simply silence, instead of arguing with someone who insists on misunderstanding her. Each small choice is a quiet wall, a signal that she values her energy more than winning a battle that doesn't matter. There is serenity in not explaining everything, in trusting that what is true will remain and what is not will naturally fall away. She has learned that constant defending only drains her. Silence, patience, and presence often speak louder than words. What belongs will never leave. What leaves was never meant to stay. Boundaries are not built overnight. They are carved from years of experience, moments of heartbreak, and the quiet vow never to abandon oneself again. Every scar has taught her something. Every tear has sharpened her vision. A woman who has walked through betrayal and confusion eventually reaches this sacred place. I know the pain of being mistreated. I will not allow it again, not from others and not from myself. Her life becomes simpler, not because she avoids conflict, but because she no longer entertains confusion. Her yes carries presence, her no carries peace, and she no longer feels the urge to justify either. Her decisions become clear, and her energy grows lighter, because she no longer drags the weight of explanations behind her. A woman who lives this way changes the very air around her. In her presence, people become more mindful, more respectful, not out of fear, but out of admiration. They sense this is not someone you can half love, not someone you can offer scraps to, not someone you can manipulate or wear down. She radiates certainty, and that certainty draws honesty out of others. This is a woman who has come home to herself, and in doing so, she teaches others how to treat her, not through lectures, but through her way of being. If someone asks, "Why don't you accept this?" she does not give a long answer. She smiles and walks away. Because her boundary is not an argument, it is a mirror of her worth, and it requires no permission. Her walk away is enough of an answer. There is something profoundly powerful about a woman who moves with dignity, not only in her words or posture, but in her everyday rituals. Not in grand gestures that win applause, but in the small, consistent acts she performs when no one is watching. These daily practices, often overlooked, are the architecture of her self-respect. They prove how she values herself, not in theory, but in practice. They are like small bricks laid one by one, slowly but surely, building a foundation that cannot be shaken easily. Each habit, no matter how small, becomes a message to herself. I matter. My well-being matters. A woman of intelligence knows confidence is no accident. It is the outcome of how she speaks to herself, how she feeds herself, how she rests, moves, dresses, listens, walks, and returns to her own center. These small choices may look ordinary, but together they shape her identity. They form the soil from which her peace, her relationships, and her decisions grow. Confidence doesn't just appear. It's planted, watered, and grown through the quiet details of daily living. Her day begins the moment she wakes. A woman in alignment doesn't reach for her phone as soon as her eyes open. She reaches for stillness, for awareness, for intention. She knows her first thoughts set the tone for the hours ahead. So she creates a morning rhythm that reminds her who she is before the world tells her who to be. It might be a few deep breaths, a sip of something warm, a written reflection, or a quiet moment by the window. Not because she must, but because she honors herself enough to begin her day with presence. These moments are simple, but their effect ripples across her entire day. She starts calm so she can stay calm. She starts with clarity so she can act with clarity. There's a story of a woman who felt endlessly drained, not just from work, but from the constant demands of others. Children, colleagues, a partner who gave less than he took. She began losing herself. Her body tightened, her mood turned reactive. She felt like she was living on autopilot, constantly responding, but never truly choosing. Then someone suggested, spend 10 minutes each morning just for yourself. Do something that grounds you. At first she dismissed it. That won't help, she thought, but she tried. Just 10 minutes with her journal, no phone, no interruptions. Sometimes she wrote down her thoughts, sometimes she just sat quietly with her tea, letting her body wake up slowly. Within 3 weeks, everything felt different, not because her life became easier, but because she became steadier. She reacted less, she chose more wisely, she carried herself with more presence. Those 10 minutes became her sanctuary, a daily reminder that her needs and her peace were just as important as anyone else's. The lesson is simple. Self-respect is built cumulatively, not through one bold moment, but through daily choices that honor your worth. especially when others cannot see it. These private victories become the roots of lasting strength. A woman who practices this no longer looks for validation in unhealthy places. She doesn't need constant praise to feel beautiful, because she has cared for her body with gentleness. She doesn't need external applause to feel accomplished, because she has kept her own promises, even if they were small, like drinking water, finishing a walk, or writing a single paragraph. Her small wins gather strength. They become her quiet power. And this strength flows into her relationships, making her calmer, kinder, and clearer. A woman who respects herself grows selective, not out of arrogance, but out of clarity. She doesn't waste energy on empty conversations. She doesn't allow inconsistency to drain her. She doesn't remain in spaces where she must constantly explain why she deserves care. She's not unkind about it. She just knows her rituals, her rhythm, and her peace are not up for sacrifice. The love she accepts must mirror the love she already gives herself. Psychology shows that rituals create safety in the nervous system. The human mind thrives on predictability. When a woman grounds herself in rituals, walking, journaling, breathing, mindful cooking, she tells her body, you are safe, you are grounded, you are cared for. That internal safety becomes the foundation for how she faces challenges. In uncertain moments, these rituals become an anchor, reminding her that no matter what storms are outside, she still has a rhythm of care inside. Picture a woman in a relationship where affection comes and goes. One day warm, the next cold. Her heart, caught in the storm, questions her worth. She feels the confusion, the ache of inconsistency, the emotional pull of someone who is never stable. Yet because she's anchored in daily rituals, she doesn't collapse. She may hurt, yes, but she knows how to return to herself. Her practices become a map back to balance. She has trained her body and mind to recognize home, not in someone else, but in her own breath and being. This is not theory, it is lived practice. She has walked through disappointment and still chosen to sit with her journal. She has faced loneliness and still lit her candle. These repeated acts tell her nervous system, you belong here, you are whole. A woman who nourishes herself builds emotional resilience. Her rituals whisper, no matter what happens outside, I still have me. And that knowledge keeps her steady when life disappoints her. Instead of breaking down completely, she bends and then rises again, her strength slowly renewed by the small, ordinary things she does for herself every day. There is a woman who lights a candle every night before bed. Simple, yes, but for her it was sacred. Even after chaotic days, she returned to that flame. On nights of sorrow, she lit it. On nights of joy, she lit it. On nights of numbness, she lit it. That small act became healing, a reminder that even when the world felt unstable, she could still show up for herself. Over time, that tiny flame became more than light. It became a signal of hope, an unspoken promise that she was never truly alone. This is the power of ritual, not to fix you, but to remind you of your dignity, your strength, your sacredness. They are touchstones, steadying you when everything else shifts. In love, this makes a woman steady. She no longer seeks emotional highs to feel alive. Her inner world is already abundant. She brings calm, not chaos. She listens more deeply, speaks more gently, responds more wisely. Because she's not acting from scarcity, she is full. And because she is full, she does not cling to love, she adds to it. And fullness is magnetic. She draws others, not through words, but through the peace she radiates. A man may not know why, but he feels safe around her. Her energy is centered, her presence undemanding. He feels he can breathe easier near her because she has already learned to breathe easily within herself. She is simply there, whole, grounded, alive. This is also why she can walk away when needed, not with anger, but with reverence for herself. She doesn't slam doors, she closes them softly, without needing to be understood, because she knows solitude is not punishment, it is a return. She has learned to be alone without loneliness. In her rituals, she has befriended herself. One of the most powerful things a woman can do is treat herself as she wishes to be treated, with kindness in words, with love in nourishment, with grace in appearance, with permission in rest, with respect in movement. She models for herself the very love she once sought elsewhere. When she lives this way consistently, the world reflects it back. There is an old truth: you teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. This is not abstract, it plays out every day. A woman who abandons her needs to please others teaches them that her needs don't matter, not because they are cruel, but because she modeled it. She silently gives permission through her actions, and people, even unintentionally, follow that script. But when she honors her space, her energy, and her rhythm, others learn quickly. This is a woman who must be met with presence, or not at all. She doesn't have to demand it, because her very way of living sets the tone. People feel it in the way she carries herself, in her boundaries, in her quiet confidence. On the path of self-mastery, rituals become sacred practices. Each day they declare, I am worthy, I am whole, I am responsible for my energy. These small practices are like invisible anchors, keeping her steady when life tries to pull her in all directions. And this responsibility is not heavy, it is freedom. Because once a woman claims it, she no longer waits for others to fill her cup. She fills it herself, daily, joyfully. She no longer measures her happiness by someone else's presence or absence. Instead, her joy becomes a rhythm she creates and protects. Eastern philosophy teaches the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. How you fold clothes, how you pour tea, how you step, all reflect your inner state. Even the simplest acts carry meaning because they mirror the condition of your heart and mind. A woman rushing through her day carries tension into her relationships without realizing it. Her hurried steps, her distracted answers, her restless presence spill into the spaces she shares with others. But a woman who pauses to breathe as she ties her hair, who arranges her home with care, who eats with presence, she carries that same presence into her interactions. Her steadiness becomes her gift. Presence is the fruit of ritual, and presence is the purest form of love. When you are fully there, fully listening, fully seeing, it communicates more than words ever could. Imagine being loved by someone fully present, someone who sets aside their phone when you speak, who remembers what you shared yesterday, who notices your mood before you say a word. That depth of attention is rare, and it always begins with how one treats themselves. For no woman can give presence to another if she is absent from herself. To offer deep love, she must first learn to offer deep presence to her own soul. This is why rituals, though small, are everything. They are the roots of her inner garden. If she neglects them, her energy becomes fragile. If she nurtures them, her energy becomes a source of strength for her and for others. Just like a garden, her inner life requires tending, watering, sunlight, and care. There is no perfect ritual. Some women dance each dawn, others sit in stillness. Some write unsent letters, others walk barefoot on the earth. Some pray, some stretch, some sing, some even find ritual in cooking, in gardening, or in sitting quietly with a cup of tea. The form doesn't matter. What matters is that she does it for herself. Not to impress, not to perform, but to return. Return to center, return to truth, return to self. And as she does, her relationships shift. Not because others transform, but because she has become a woman who knows what she needs. A woman who gives from overflow, not emptiness. A woman who enters a room not desperate to be chosen, but already whole. And wholeness cannot be faked. It must be lived. One ritual at a time. And when she lives it long enough, it becomes part of her way of being, her signature in the world. Once a woman begins to live like this, when her habits are rooted in respect for herself, her silence gains weight, her emotions gain discipline, her mind gains clarity, her life gains creativity, her boundaries gain firmness, and her rituals gain consistency. Each part of her life reflects the inner alignment she has built. She no longer searches the world for her worth, she embodies it. She no longer asks, "Am I enough?" because she feels it in the way she rises each morning. She no longer clings to those who must be convinced to stay, because she no longer fears being alone. She becomes a woman whose presence speaks before her words, not because she is loud, but because she is aligned. In this alignment, her relationships refine, her standards rise, her circle strengthens. She no longer accepts crumbs because she prepares a feast within her own soul. Her life becomes her message, her energy becomes her boundary, her rituals become her protection. And those who wish to walk with her must first learn to walk with the same integrity she shows herself every single day. This is the mark of a highly intelligent woman.